I do have skills that make me a nightmare for people like you.
No matter what the government officials say, torture on the testicles is pretty serious.
Do you apologise for anything?
No, I don't think I do.
The United Nations has found New Zealand breached the Convention Against Torture by failing to properly investigate abuse at Lake Alice Hospital in the 1970s.
They have you sitting in the chair or they have you laying on the bed. Nurses holding you down, you've got no choice.
A victim took the case to the UN because the psychiatrist accused of electrocuting patients has never faced charges.
Repeated attempts to contact Leakes, who now lives in Australia, have been unsuccessful. Paul says in 1974 he was diagnosed with a behavioural disorder by psychiatrist Selwyn Leakes, who he claims then tortured him.
G'day everyone. Well, as I said, I'd update you with more things in regards to the Lake Alice victims, and I'll just bring your attention to this little thing that was on Newsroom. I'll put the original link in the description. Published by David Williams on the 30th of March, just a week or so after I did that part 2 of the UN's decision. And I'll read it out to you. Okay, so it's called Taken by the State. Glimmer of Hope for Lake Alice Victims. Police start initial investigation into abuse at notorious psychiatric hospital, David Williams reports. The government has missed a 90-day deadline. Yeah. So that night I made that last part 2 video was the D-Day. It was Wednesday the 24th. It was midnight Wednesday when full lockdown went into, and I think we're in what, day 13 or whatever of lockdown at the moment. So yeah, it's gone a little crazy out there. You have to get to the supermarket a good hour before it opens to even beat the queue. So yeah, a bit of a shocker. Anyway, the government has missed a 90-day deadline for responding to a United Nations committee over torture at Lake Alice Child and Adolescent Unit in the 1970s. However, in a move that might represent a glimmer of hope for victims, police confirmed they've reopened an initial investigation phase into abuse claims. In December, the United Nations Committee Against Torture published a damning report saying successive governments hadn't properly investigated uncontested allegations of torture at the State Psychiatric Hospital near Wanganui. The government had 90 days to respond, which expired last Wednesday. Crown Law confirmed the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights has provided a 2-month extension because of the COVID-19 outbreak. Really? Well, that didn't start until, well, you heard when I said 24th of March is when we went into stage 3. So what about the 3 months that the Crown had to at least even talk to Michael Ferris or to Paul? They had been from them. There was some appointment which was rescheduled by the Crown. So, you know, that's ridiculous. I'll take you back to a point when Mike Wesley-Smith said what the victims wanted, or what they don't want. Here it is.
Yeah, I was looking, there's more than 2,000 emails I've sent over that time trying to get to the truth on this. I'll just point out at this stage, the Crown and Ministry of Health acknowledge that these patients were subjected to unacceptable treatment. We are talking about 200 alleged acts of cruel and degrading treatment and possibly torture.
And that's why this is so crucial, isn't it?
I can tell you what they don't want. They don't want blacked out documents. They don't want people claiming legal privilege. They don't want delays. They just want someone in government to look like they give a damn about what happened to them.
So there you go. It shows you. They don't want any more delays. They just want the truth. But more delays. I mean, it's kind of handy, that COVID-19 outbreak, wasn't it? Don't want to waste a good crisis. Crown Law confirms the Office of the High Commissioner provided a 2-month extension because of COVID-19 outbreak, which applies to the government's response to the Committee Against Torture, or UNCAT. We are, however, working to submit the government's response to the UNCAT as soon as reasonably possible, Solicitor General Una Jagosi, Executive Assistant Elizabeth Underhill says. The UN Committee's report was prompted by a complaint by Auckland fishing skipper Paul Zentfeld, who spent nearly 3 years at Lake Alice from the age of 13 suffering treatment of electric shocks, electroconvulsive therapy, ECT, drugs and solitary confinement. Zentfeld expected the government to miss the deadline. They've had 90 days to come up with a result. It's hopeless, he says. If they can't do their job, they should be replaced. And it's a huge insult to all survivors. Similar sentiments are expressed by another Lake Alice victim, Malcolm Richards, or Malcolm Justice, of Hastings, who has complained to the UN Committee about ECT use that left him brain damaged and with a burn to his penis. They were given 90 days, Richards says. Most of that was up before the COVID-19 even started affecting New Zealand. So what the heck? That's just another bullshit excuse as far as I'm concerned. And I completely agree with you, Malcolm. Initial investigation phase. As reported last month, in the wake of the non-binding UN decision, what's the point of pulling out that it's non-binding? They're ratified, that's part of it. The non-binding UN decision that the government violated 3 articles of the Convention Against Torture, police said they were reviewing their file on Lake Alice psychiatrist Selwyn Leeks. Newsroom asked police if the review is complete, and if so, to be told the result. We also want to know if a wider investigation of the other abuse cases has begun. An anonymised police spokesperson, in other words someone who didn't want to put their name behind saying anything, responded via email. Police have commenced the initial investigation phase in respect of complaints of ill treatment at Lake Alice. Unfortunately, the response to COVID-19 will affect the timing of completing this initial investigation phase. So there you go, guys. COVID-19, bloody good excuse for them not to do their job again. I would have thought with a lot more police resources that are out there now they're not out there sitting on the side of the road gaining revenue off of people when they're driving, you know. Sure, you know, it's the first time in 25 years I've ever seen police walking down the normal shopping mall around us locally. First time ever, you know, and they weren't 2 metres apart, they weren't wearing face masks and they weren't wearing gloves. And that was just before 2 of them ended up getting it. So, you know, if you're going to interact with the public all frickin' day, you'd think you'd, you know, be protective, practice what you preach, but no. Anyway, how many complaints? The initial investigation phase will clarify this, the spokesperson says. As such, we're not able to comment further at this stage. The phrase initial investigation leaves Richards fuming. He and at least 2 others made sexual assault complaints that prompted a fresh police investigation, a fact mentioned in the UN report. I put my complaint in over a year ago, and so did Paul, Richards says. How long does it take to investigate a case long enough to say, yes, we can or cannot prosecute? They've had over 12 months now. Zentfeld believes police foot-dragging might have held up the government response to Geneva. I don't know why they kept embarrassing the police minister and Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern and not doing their fucking job. They might want to black it out, but hey, I've still got freedom of speech in this damn country. It's a new twist into a murky history of multiple inquiries that have failed to hold anyone to account. The first child abuse complaints from Lake Alice emerged in 1976. The government officially apologised and paid $12.8 million in compensation to 195 victims. Well, yeah, $12.8 million. Of that, 40% went to the lawyers. Police spent 3.5 years investigating, concluding 10 years ago there was insufficient evidence to prosecute Leeks, the psychiatrist in charge of and who has always denied wrongdoing. He moved to Australia in the late 1970s and is still thought to be living there. The UN Committee's December report notes Lake Alice events happened. They met the threshold of torture or at least ill treatment, and Zentfeld was a victim. There was evidence of the application of ECT and electric shocks at Lake Alice, but the UN report says it wasn't clear police made sufficient effort to clarify the facts. Only 1 of the 41 people who had filed criminal complaints were interviewed by police. Last month, Children's Commissioner Andrew Beecroft added pressure for a further investigation into abusive practices at Lake Alice, saying it is clearly required. What took place was not treatment. I think that's very clear, Mike Ferris says. Good on you, Mike. Now, I've met Mike Ferris. That is a gentleman of total integrity. From what I've met of him, from what I've spent quite a few hours talking to the gentleman, yeah, he's not one to run into something, and he is very, very methodical. Not everyone scoffs at the latest police statement. The Citizens Commission on Human Rights, a group aligned with the Church of Scientology. No, it's not a group aligned with it. It's a group that gets funding from the Church of Scientology, because the Church and Scientology have issues with psychiatrists worldwide. Okay? I'm not going to get into that rabbit hole, but let's just say from what I've been and met of them, they seem nice enough people. But then I'm not going to go join in their group anytime soon either. By that I mean Scientology. I'm happy to work with Mike and Victor and Steve and the rest of them. They are stand-up guys in my book. Represented Zentfeld at the UN. Mike Ferris, the group's director in this country, says he understands the disappointment of Zentfeld and Richards, but if an investigation has begun, then that's good news. It is what we've wanted all along. The UN committee report from December demanded a prompt, impartial and independent investigation into Lake Alice allegations, and, where appropriate, the filing of specific torture and or ill-treatment charges against the perpetrators. If a crime has been committed, then someone should be charged and brought to justice, Ferris says, because so far the message to the community has been all along that you can't get away with this. He adds, what took place was not treatment. I think that's very clear. The police will need expert medical opinions and advice on how to read medical notes, he says, also to define the misuse of drugs and misuse of the ECT machine. He hopes police access information from historical cases of cruel and inhumane treatment at Lake Alice. It was not aversion therapy, Ferris says. It was some sadistic drama. Uncertainty for Lake Alice victims is compounded by the national shutdown because of COVID-19, but not much has changed for Richards, who has debilitating mental and psychiatric health problems. In my situation, I don't go anywhere and do anything anyway. He tells Newsroom, it's pretty easy for me to go through this month. It's not much difference at all. I've got to say pretty much the same, not for the same reasons, just because we live rurally and we don't really have neighbours or let's just say I can throw a cat without hitting anyone. So yeah, now that's the report from David Williams. Oh yes, there's the Official Information Act requests that I got a response from. I'll give you an update on the Ministry of Social Development's response to the, which was dated on the 15th of February, their response to the OIA. Plus I've also got another OIA response as well, which I haven't yet printed out, and I'll make sure I get that to you as well, so you can have a read of that. Well guys, until we meet again, I will catch up with you soon. I've got some Official Information Act videos coming up to show you some responses to very simple questions, and sometimes it's the answers that they don't give that can be quite alarming. But we'll get into that on another date. So until then, I will catch you all later on. See ya.